LeighTDickey.com. What's going on, everybody? Leigh Dickey here. Welcome to another episode of Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast where I take a look at matches, segments, promos, and give you my thoughts on the wonderful world of professional wrestling. We share news, and I give you opinions much like this one that I'm about to give you today. Now, I've taken Pinfall on the road today. It is Saturday, August 17th. The recording, and this is going out on Monday the 19th, and with that I want to get to tell you, or at least share with you, some of my King of the Ring memories since the tournament is coming back starting tonight. Well, by the time you hear this, it will be tonight on Raw. The tournament will kick off, and I did get a look at the brackets. You've got Cesaro, The Miz, and these guys aren't facing each other, but there's a bracket of 16 performers. So Cesaro, The Miz, Kevin Owens. You've got Andrade in there. And I'm probably going to miss a few because I don't have it in front of me. But it's a whole host load of performers that are entrenched with WWE today. And some of my King of the Ring memories, they are sporadic. I'm not going to lie, because the King of the Ring hasn't really been featured all that much like it was in years past through, say, like the early to mid 90s, all through the Attitude Era. And it hasn't been a pay-per-view since about 2002. The first thing I remember about the King of the Ring is Bret Hart winning it in 93. I vaguely remember that. I'm not sure that he needed that, though. I'm not sure that he needed to win the King of the Ring tournament. And that was his second one. He had won it twice. He'd won it for the first time in 1991, and then he won it again in 93. I'm not sure that he needed to win the King of the Ring tournament, though, because he was well on his way to becoming the company's top star anyhow. So, I'm not even sure whether him winning the King of the Ring had to do with, Hogan coming in and beating Yokozuna for the championship at Mania 9. I'm not sure about that, but maybe somebody can clear that up, somebody that's listening to this. Another one, I know that Owen won it the year after that. He won it in 94, and he went on that whole, Black Heart run. And good for him, right? I think he could have won, or should have won, the WWE title. Not that I think he needed it more than Bret did, but it's good to see Bret and Owen go back-to-back in 93 and 94. And then in 95, you had Mabel. Oh, Mabel. I suppose Vince was in his big man phase and saw Mabel and just kind of started drooling. And I'll give Mabel or Viscera, his due. I think he was a good big man, but early on, I'm not sure he should have been there, and I'm sure Vince was kind of taken by the size of Nelson Frazier or Viscera or Mabel. It's a shame that Mabel wasn't the third man in the NWO. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joking. Ah, ha, ha, ha. So Mabel wins in 95, and then he goes on that run, and he faces Diesel or Kevin Nash at SummerSlam. That doesn't work out. I think he got released either shortly thereafter this, later into 95 and early into 96. Then we have 96 where Austin wins it, and he cuts that infamous promo on Jake the Snake Roberts. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Well, Austin 3:16 says, "I just whooped your ass," lights the rocket, and we all know what happens there. Austin goes on to be the greatest of all time, arguably, or the highest selling superstar in terms of merch of all time. It's one of those two, I think. But it just lights a rocket, becomes huge. And, I think here, Triple H was supposed to win, or at least the narrative goes, Triple H was supposed to win the King of the Ring in 1996, and then go into a huge program with Shawn Michaels, who was the champion at the time. But because of the curtain call, somebody had to be punished, because obviously Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, and Diesel, Kevin Nash, were going to WCW, and it's not like you're going to punish Shawn Michaels because he's your top guy. So Triple H basically goes to the bottom of the totem pole and then has to work his way back up. He was eventually given an IC title run, and he won the 97 King of the Ring, which, you know, I suppose, like, it was a good thing for him to win it. Maybe perhaps his career needed that boost, but I think he would have gotten to the top spot in the company either way, given the change that he sort of spearheaded with Shawn Michaels and DX, and then they went into the Attitude Era, and then like Shawn Michaels having to retire after Mania 14 for a while, and then you know, Triple H basically taking over that top heel spot in the company. I think he would have gotten there, but he won it in 97, which was really cool. And then 98, I think it was Ken Shamrock that won the King of the Ring. In my opinion, they didn't really do much with him. I mean, he was billed as the most dangerous man, and I get that he has a legitimate, you know, MMA background, and can legitimately snap anybody in half if he wants to. And he was involved in the Bret Austin match from Mania 13 in 97 as a special guest referee, and obviously he took Bret down at the end of that match, and then Austin gets up and is basically made after that. You know, that just shifted Austin's career into a new gear. I'm talking about like Mania 13 at that point. But Shamrock, you know, he signs with the company and he wins King of the Ring 98, but he didn't really get beyond like the IC title. He didn't really get beyond the mid card, which is unfortunate, because I think he could have really done something with the top prize, the WWE title, had they gone that route. I mean, you just like, you build this guy as the most dangerous man anyway, so if he's got your top belt, then that'll just make it mean something when he, like, really means something when he finally, like, just have him go on, like, undefeated streak, and then when he's beaten by your top heel or your top baby face or whatever you want to book him as, heel or baby, if he goes on this long streak of just dominance, and then this is how I would book it anyway, if he were the top guy. Like, just have him go on a long streak, be completely dominant, and then have him lose the title to either your top heel or your top babyface, depending on which way you want to book him. And then that your title means so much more. You know, like, I don't know how long you'd book the streak for, maybe, you know, close to a year, if not more than a year, given like a CM Punk-esque type of run. And I think it would have done wonders for his career had he won the WWF title at the time, WWF Championship. But they just didn't really do much for him, you know, past winning King of the Ring in 98. He just didn't really get beyond the mid-card, which is unfortunate. There was that whole, like, Ryan Shamrock angle thing there, and it was unfortunate, because I think had it been done right, had it been done correctly, having Ken Shamrock as your top dominant champion, like, who doesn't want to see that? That's fantastic. And bonus points for him having a legitimate, like, mixed martial arts background. That's just perfect. And in 99, this one to me is a little bit weird, like, because you have people like Triple H winning it in 97, Austin won it in 96, and then Shamrock winning it in 98. Fine, no problem. We're getting past the cartoonish characters in the WWE. And then in 99, Billy Gunn wins it. Now that left me scratching my head. I was like, really? Because he's been a tag team guy. Obviously, he's part of the Smoking Guns. He's mainly been a mid-card guy, though. Like, obviously there was the New Age Outlaws with Brian James, or the Road Dogg as he's known, and I just was kind of like, okay, so you go from Austin, Triple H, Ken Shamrock, all three guys I could believe is King of the Ring, and then you get Billy Gunn in there, and I'm like, oh, crickets. Ladies and gentlemen, just crickets at that point. I was so surprised when he won it. They really didn't do much for him or with him in terms of after winning King of the Ring. I think it just kind of like fizzled out and died out once The Rock cut that promo where he just said, God himself spoke to you and said, Bob, but my name's Billy. And then it doesn't matter what your name is. I think once The Rock cut that promo in early July in '99, that killed any momentum. Like, that just kind of destroyed it. And I know that, like, I've seen clips and heard things where, you know, Monty Soap, Billy Gunn, loves that promo. But it was like, it just kind of full stop after that. Like, they did nothing with Billy other than, I think he got one or two more IC title reigns in the early 2000s, maybe 3, 4, something like that. He had another, you know, there was a few IC title runs. He had that run with Chuck Palumbo as Billy and Chuck, and they were tag team champions for a while. But after that, after that promo that The Rock cut on Sunday Night Heat in July of '99, everything, all that momentum after winning the tournament for Billy Gunn, in my opinion, just kind of fizzled out. It died out. That was it. And then there was 2000, which I think that's the only King of the Ring pay-per-view that I ever ordered. And I thought it was a strange pay-per-view. You had Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson in a hardcore evening gown match because it was the Attitude Era. They had a hardcore title. ECW was still around. WCW was going to go out in less than a year. And it was just like, why not? Because it's just crazy. It's the Attitude Era. We're throwing everything at the wall. I mean, hey, if you can have Mae Young give birth to a hand, you can have Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson in a hardcore evening gown match. And I was like, okay. I was actually looking at the card for this show specifically because I still have it on a VHS tape in my house somewhere. That was the main event for that show was Triple H, Shane McMahon, and Vince McMahon against The Rock, Undertaker, and Kane in a 6-man tag match for the WWF title. So the person who got the pinfall in that match would become the WWF champion. And, well, The Rock won it. Rock bottom on Vince McMahon, 1, 2, 3. He's the champ. He holds it all the way till No Mercy, where he loses it to the winner of the King of the Ring tournament this year, Kurt Angle. Now, before I get into, like, Kurt Angle winning the King of the Ring, the whole thing, the WWF title in 2000, I get that Austin wasn't there for most of it. He didn't come back to active competition until that October. I mean, he made sporadic appearances. He was at Backlash as the enforcer for the match between The Rock and Triple H for the WWF title, and The Rock won the WWF title there. But I'll get into the whole like WWF title picture in a second. So Austin makes an appearance at Backlash, and then you don't see him again until, was it Unforgiven? And then he comes back in October or something like that. He made sporadic appearances throughout 2000 because he was off due to his neck issues. But the WWF title leading into King of the Ring this year in 2000, you had, like, it was, Triple H was basically the top heel, right? He beat Mick Foley in what was to be, or at least at that point, his final match. His career versus title in a Hell in a Cell at No Way Out. And so he went, like, Triple H wins at No Way Out, like, Foley retires. And then you go to Mania, which was April 2nd of that year, of 2000. And it's a four corners, or a fatal four-way match, sorry, where every single competitor has a McMahon in their corner. So they brought Mick Foley back, and then Linda McMahon was in his corner. You had Vince McMahon in The Rock's corner. You had Shane McMahon in the Big Show's corner, and obviously Stephanie was in Triple H's corner, who was the champ at the time. Out of Mania, Triple H retains. In my opinion, I think in the opinion of a lot of people, that main event really should have been, the Mania main event that year, which was 16 and it took place in Anaheim, should have really been Triple H versus The Rock in a one-on-one for the title, and just have Rock go over, in my opinion. Like, it would have made more sense, have him win the title at Mania and hold it all the way through, lose it to Angle 6 months later. Why not? That would have made sense. Because if Angle was already booked to win King of the Ring, why not? You should have just Rock Triple H at Mania. Rock wins, holds it until No Mercy, drops it to Angle, and why not? It's perfect. However, they didn't do that. So Triple H retains at Mania. We go to Backlash. Rock wins it there. He wins the title there at Backlash. Holds it for 3 weeks until Judgment Day, where he drops it back to Triple H in an Iron Man match where Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee. In my opinion, this was a bad booking decision. Again, you're hot-shotting the title. Seems stupid in my opinion. I mean, granted, like, this is, 19 years later. But, so, Triple H retains at Mania. Rock wins it at Backlash, drops it at Judgment Day, back to Triple H, and then we get to King of the Ring, where Rock wins the WWF title again in this six-man tag match by pinning Vince McMahon, and then from here he holds it to No Mercy, where he drops it to this year's King of the Ring winner in 2000 to Kurt Angle. It just seems stupid. It's just hotshot booking. I don't get it. It seems stupid. It came across stupid. If you look back on it, it sounds stupid. That's probably because it is. This is strictly from a fan's perspective, though. So, all right, that was your main event. And you had, I think Kurt Angle went over on Rikishi in 2000 in the King of the Ring, which I found a bit weird, but I mean, if you want to book Rikishi strong, I guess this is how you do it. So, Kurt Angle goes over on Rikishi, is the King of the Ring, and, goes, obviously, and 4 months later, he's the WWF champion by beating The Rock at No Mercy. And to be quite honest with you, I agree with that booking, having him, like, win King of the Ring and then going to No Mercy like a few months down the line, after like you had Fully Loaded, then you had SummerSlam, and then you had Unforgiven, and then he beats The Rock at No Mercy. In my opinion, that's good booking when you have, like, Angle was this hot rookie, and I think Austin has said that he hasn't seen anybody pick up the business as fast as Kurt did, so, good on him, right? And he's obviously one of the greats now to ever lace up a pair of boots. So Kurt goes to No Mercy after winning King of the Ring. Granted, there were a few few pay-per-views and other storylines in there. But obviously, he has a fantastic rookie year, right? Aside from his loss to Taz at the Royal Rumble back in January, Kurt, King of the Ring, goes on to become WWF champion. He had a fantastic rookie year, eh? So he debuts at Survivor Series 99. Granted, he doesn't lose until January, which is a couple months later, at the Royal Rumble to Taz. But he wins the European title, the Intercontinental title, and the WWF title, plus the King of the Ring, all in his first year in the company. And that's fantastic. He has probably one of the most decorated first years ever in any company, and it's just like this rocket to stardom. And good on the company and good on him for picking up the business so fast. good on the company for booking it the way that they did. I think it was pretty well done. So that was 2000, in my opinion. Having Kurt win the King of the Ring was fantastic. You also had, at King of the Ring 2000, you had like the Dudley Boys against Road Dogg and, Road Dogg, X-Pac, and Tori in a handicap tables match, or handicap table dumpster match, which it was the Attitude Era. They did these things all the time. 2000 was probably the hottest year for the company in general, in terms of like the Attitude Era and like all their business as a whole. And it just sort of went up from there. So we get that was like, so here we are, we arrive at 2001. 2001, King of the Ring, that one to me is a standout pay-per-view for one reason, and that's the Kurt Angle, Shane McMahon street fight, where Kurt went over, but it was a bloody, brutal street fight. Like, Kurt broke his tailbone on a suplex from Shane on the entrance ramp, and Kurt suplexed Shane through what they thought was sugar glass, but it wasn't. It was like reinforced. I guess because of all the pyro, and they ordered the wrong glass. So Shane obviously suffered a concussion or two in that match. And, you know, Kurt suplexes Shane through the glass and then throws him through another panel. And it was brutal. I mean, the narrative goes that, like, Vince nearly walked out like 3 times and stopped the match because it was just a brutal match. Kurt pinned Shane by, angle. There was an angle slam off the top rope, off of a plywood board, and then 1, 2, 3, Angle wins that match. And surprisingly, Angle was also in this year's King of the Ring tournament in 2001. I think he had victories over Christian, and he didn't face Rhino, but it was Christian, and there was another match that he had, because that was I think Christian was his semifinal match, but he had 2 matches on this pay-per-view for the King of the Ring tournament, and then that match with Shane McMahon. He went 3 times that night. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's right. He had Christian was his semifinal. He won there, and then he lost to Edge in the final. So Edge is the 2001 King of the Ring, and then he beat Shane in that street fight. So he went 2 for 3 that night at King of the Ring 2001. And I get, like, when Edge went over this year, 2001 at King of the Ring, in my opinion, it just seemed kind of weird to me. Like, and I hate to say this because obviously Edge went on to have a fantastic career, won multiple world titles, tag titles, and mid-card titles. Like, he's filled up his trophy case with world titles, WWE titles, and your mid-card titles, and tag titles, and what have you. Did he ever win the hardcore title? But I mean, like, he's got titles galore, basically, in his trophy case. And at this point, when he won King of the Ring, I didn't really see him as like this breakout star. And then once he finally broke away, I think once they changed his theme music, and there was like a distinction between him and Christian, the following year or the year after that, it was either a year or 2 later, where I was like, now he's a single star. Now I can distinguish him from just Christian, right? Like the Edge and Christian tag team. And they were a fantastic tag team, by the way. But it wasn't until, at least for me, like the following year in 2002 or 2003, like that mid-2000s run that he had in the mid-card, where they treated him proper as a star, where he was, for me, a star. Like, he finally to me, it's like he finally broke away from Christian. He finally broke away from that tag team moniker. But it didn't happen here for me at King of the Ring when he went over Kurt Angle in the final, which is unfortunate, but I'm glad that obviously he had a storied career with multiple world titles and, you know, your mid-card titles, your IC title. I think he was the WCW US champ at one point. And then the multitude of tag titles that he won with Christian and everybody else. I think he won the SmackDown tag titles with Hogan at one point, if I remember correctly. And it's just, and then he was a tag champ with Jericho. So he's an accomplished, he's had an accomplished career and good on him. But, you know, as for King of the Ring 2001, didn't really see him as a breakout star. And I hate to say that now, but that's just the way it was for me back in those days. 2002, which was the last year they held it on pay-per-view, and I think this was smart booking, in my opinion, having Brock win the tournament, because he was this hot upstart. It was just this big kid, I guess you could say, and to have him win the tournament, good idea, fantastic booking. He went over RVD in the final, I think, which was really cool. Having Brock win the tournament and then just go on to have this, like that first run with WWE. Like, obviously he wins the tournament and then goes to SummerSlam to beat The Rock, captures the undisputed title, and then, you know, I think he had a Hell in a Cell match and a biker chain match with The Undertaker to cap off this year. Was the Big Show like? Did he have a couple feuds with the Big Show this year too? But you know, having him win the tournament because he was just this young, hot, big, heelish upstart, and he was a believable King of the Ring. Fantastic. That was the last year they held it on pay-per-view. Interesting note about this pay-per-view: this is where Undertaker and DDP had a match, or the blow off to their feud, because DDP was revealed to be the stalker to the Undertaker's wife, Sarah, at the time. And I don't know, like it just seemed to be like, I think Pritchard had stated, like, I mean, maybe they would have changed some things around, but in a way he's right. Like, they put him right into a program with the Undertaker, but having him come off as a stalker to Undertaker's wife, I don't think that's the way you want to do it. But that's the way they did it, unfortunately. And then after this feud with The Undertaker, he went on to have like this really weird sort of motivational speaking heel gimmick. And I thought, okay, whatever. But I'm always going to love DDP. Of course, like, so leading up to this pay-per-view, in terms of like The Undertaker and DDP having their blow-off, DDP was pinned by The Undertaker's wife, Sarah, at one point, and I suppose you could say, like, he was thrust right into a feud with The Undertaker. Like, what more could you really ask for? It just, I don't know, in my opinion, it kind of started, like, the stalker angle was a good, in my opinion, it was a good angle. It was a good, like, for the time, it was a good place to start, but I didn't think they would go, DDP, you're the stalker, now you're in it almost seemed like a series of squash matches against The Undertaker, Kane, and or his wife, Sarah, at the time. And it kind of came off really weird. But I mean, the idea of having an Undertaker DDP feud, yeah, why not? But the way it was executed, it just kind of fell flat and kind of petered out. But this was the final King of the Ring on pay-per-view, and from here, the tournament lay dormant for 4 years, I think it was, and didn't come back again until 2006, where they had Booker T win it. And I really don't have much of a recollection in terms of like the 2006 King of the Ring tournament, but I remember Booker T's King Booker gimmick, and he played it so well as a heel. King Booker, as he would just constantly say. And he was such a believable heel. I think he went on to have a world title reign after beating Rey Mysterio at the Great American Bash, I think, and it was perfect. He played it perfectly, having him win the King of the Ring and then embrace that King part of the moniker, that King gimmick. That was perfect. You know, you have Booker T as the King of the Ring in 2006. That's, in my opinion, that was great. And then they went from there to William Regal a couple years later, because it lay dormant for 2007. And then I remember nothing of the King of the Ring tournament in 2008 or 2010. But, like, I remember that, like, I turned on Raw one day and I saw William Regal in a King's chair and he declared himself King of the Ring. Like, that was it. I suppose, like, he was a heel. I think he was the general manager of Raw at the time. So, if that was a way of getting more heat on William Regal, then congratulations, you've succeeded. 2010, they had Sheamus win because he had come in either late in 2009 or earlier within 2010. And you want to strap a rocket to somebody like Sheamus because he's your new hot young prospect. Give him the King of the Ring title. Why not? Even though, like, he seems to be, like, I could buy him in the main event, or I could buy him as a top singles star. And I suppose if that's the way you want to do it, he's a hot young upstart. They did it with Brock Lesnar back in 2002, so why not? He goes over and gets the King of the Ring crown in 2010. And then I think the tournament lay dormant again for 5 years. And you had Wade Barrett win it, right? And I think had they done this correctly, Wade Barrett should have won either the World Heavyweight title or the WWE title out of this run. It would have been fantastic. I think was the Nexus was still, this was 2015. What am I saying? He was off on his own, accomplished. I think he had several Intercontinental title reigns by this point. But having him win the King of the Ring, I think that was perfect. I actually wanted him to go over that year, and I'm glad that he did. But I think out of winning King of the Ring, he should have gotten a world title run of some sort, like whether it be a World Heavyweight title or WWE title. Should have gotten it, but he didn't, and he left WWE, unfortunately, like, I think a year after this, or it was into, like, I think he left in, like, May of 16, after the League of Nations thing kind of imploded and fell apart. But, I mean, those are my memories of King of the Ring. Who knows who's going to win it this year? My picks are Ricochet, The Miz, and Andrade. Those are my top three. I mean, if Miz is booked as a heel this year, why not give him the King of the Ring trophy? I think that would be cool. But I know they've tried to book him as a face. But if you book Miz as a heel and then have him win the King of the Ring, I think that would be perfect. Andrade, because he's a hot young upstart. Why not? He's one of the new faces. And then you got Ricochet. Same thing. He's one of the new faces, hot young upstart. Give these guys, like, King of the Ring crown and see where they go, right? Or they could surprise us all and give it to Mustafa Ali. I think Kevin Owens is in the tournament, so he can win it too. But my top three picks for this year are Andrade, The Miz, and Ricochet. Who do you guys have this year to win the King of the Ring tournament? Do you guys have any King of the Ring memories? Post them below. Leave us a review on iTunes. Tell me what you think of this entire show, and we will go from there. Thanks again for tuning in and listening to Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast. New episodes are available every Monday at midnight Eastern Time on my official website, leightdickey.com, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thank you for listening to Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast. I am Leigh Dickey, and I am signing off. We will talk to you next Monday at midnight Eastern Time for a brand new episode of Pinfall, a pro wrestling podcast. All right, Leigh Dickey signing off. Peace.
Leigh T.